So we're so excited to be joined now by NBA journalist that's honestly killing it in the game. She's a writer,
Yeah.
host of Bleacher Report's Take It There. Go find it online where she interviews has the best interviews for the NBA players. I've seen only a gazillion of them. And
Yeah.
she was living in the bubble this summer during the NBA season. So, we're about to talk to her about that. Taylor, I'm hype girl. Welcome to Takeline.
Oh, thank you. I'm happy to be here. Oh my, Jason, can I steal Renee and just have her be my hype woman everywhere I go? That was amazing. No, thank you. That was so kind. I'm happy to be here with you guys.
Listen, I'm a fan. And so I wanted to just
Same here.
So we that's why you're here. We're a fan. But I wanted to talk to you about starting out LaMarcus Aldridge, okay? Because we all saw it, the Nets, everyone's saying they chose violence. They're getting all the Avengers together, all of this stuff. They're preparing for war. What are your thoughts on the Brooklyn Nets?
Yeah, I also agree they are choosing violence. But I understand, obviously, that, there's this whole narrative that's out there that, okay, all the Nets are joining up because they want to go and beat LeBron James. And it's like, yeah, that's probably true, but that's also basketball, right? Like, the point of basketball is that you're compiling teams to beat the team that is perceived to be the best team. I think that, we all saw it when everyone's mission was, how do you beat Stephen Curry and Golden State? Like, we have seen this happen multiple times. And I just think because it's happening, it's getting blown up. I love LaMarcus Aldridge, think he's a great player, but I'm also like, dang, we going crazy over LaMarcus Aldridge. I get it. I'm with it, but hold on a minute, So I think it's more what the LaMarcus Aldridge signing does to the greater narrative of what's happening in Brooklyn. But I think it's fun. I think that if the world was open right now, Brooklyn would explode. So it's nice. It's nice to be in New York, and hopefully, the light is at the end of the tunnel where that day can come.
Please. You mentioned the greater narrative. It really feels like a lot of this, the narrative around players moving, players teaming up, is based on, a previous image in people's heads of the NBA where, Larry Bird and McHale, they just stayed with the Celtics, and Michael Jordan never did. He never moved anywhere. And Magic Johnson never moved anywhere. What do you make of this current era of the NBA where players have a lot more ability to move? Is it bad? Is it different than what we've seen before?
Yeah, I do believe it's a little different. But I will never forget once I saw this quote and someone said, "You use basketball. Don't let basketball use you." And I feel like that's kind of this era, that we're entering now, where it's like players are kind of realizing that they are the asset, they're the commodity. They have a lot of the power. And if they are at a place they no longer want to be, they're like, I know I can bully my way out of here. And granted, I see the cons of that too, right? But I do think that it's like two sides of the same coin, I guess. But I think that's just kind of where we're at now. And I don't necessarily think like it's a bad thing. It's just different. Because I bet if you talk to some of those players you just named, if they had the ability to maybe do that at that time, they probably would have. We pick the choices that are available to us. Right. So at those times, if it was available, they probably would have done it. But it's just a different day and age. And I think that sports and also ownership and players should evolve through time, right? Just because that's the way something always has been doesn't mean that's the way that it has to be. So I like this new dynamic. I read a really interesting article, I think today or yesterday, I can't remember. I think it was Howard Beck talking about how, this is just always going to be about the rich getting richer. Because when these players do decide to go places, they want to go to the big markets. Yeah. So when are we ever going to see a time where a Sacramento is good and wins it all? Like, it feels like it's always going to be these larger markets. And I think that might create a really bad imbalance.
Yeah. And, you talked about that evolution, right? Where players are now, you said, don't let basketball use you, use basketball. So I think that really started to become a thing, even not just last summer, before that, but last summer, you started to see the athletes kind of figure out their voice, figure out that power collectively, in the bubble when the season shut down because the players decided that the season was going to stop for a second.
Yeah.
Can you just talk about, you were in the bubble during that time frame? It's historical, you know, and a lot of people had so many questions about, well, why didn't the NBA bubble up this year? If it was so successful last year, why didn't they do it again? But I know from talking to some of my homies that the bubble situation is just not the most ideal. It was very stressful, along with going on with all the civil unrest. So can you just talk about what it was like being in the bubble? Like, what was some of your biggest surprises working in the bubble, the stress level?
No, for sure. You know, I think it's so funny, you know, how there was this contingent of Twitter that was like, well, y'all just need to be in a bubble for an entire season. It's like, how can you so flippantly tell other human beings that they need to be locked in Orlando for so many months? Like, that's hard for any human to do. And even when I was just talking to a lot of players, they were having a lot of like mental issues, just as far as being here, not being able to leave, not seeing your family, living in this place that is 24/7 basketball. Also going to the pool and not even be able to have an escape because you're seeing like the guy you're playing next week. Like it was just basketball all the time. I mean, Renee, you know, one of the great things about being in this like very immersive career is you're able to check in and out, you know, like you probably feel very rejuvenated when you can go and be with your family. You feel rejuvenated when you can go to like your favorite restaurant with your friends. Like that's a big part of it. And that just wasn't the case in the bubble. Now, granted, some players loved it, right? I know like Kemba Walker, for example, loved the bubble. He's like, I don't leave my home anyway. If I'm just like in a hotel and playing basketball.
Hello, it's me. Maybe it's a UConn thing because like,
it's me. Hey, I don't know, but yeah,
we survive storms, so we can stay anywhere, okay?
You're like, hey, I'm in a stores, I'll take it. But yeah, Kemba loved it. I remember even when I had interviewed Chris Paul for my GQ article, and he was like, there for me were a lot more happy times than bad. You know, people were reunited with friends that had meant a lot to them in their lives. So it was different, but it was a different experience for every single person. And that to me was the most important thing to show, is like, it was just a myriad of different emotions. Some loved it, some didn't. Some felt like they were disconnected from all the civil unrest that was happening and wanted to be there. Some just wanted to leave. Some wanted to leave, but were thinking about the money they'd lose. Like every single player had an entirely different experience. It wasn't just like a monolith because they're all in the NBA. So it was interesting, a very interesting like social experiment in Orlando.
Renee mentioned that the bubble was historical. That's something that really stands out to me is, you know, as we move on, knock on wood, past this time in our history and move past this, we're going to look back and at certain things and really kind of appreciate like how landmark they were. I think the bubble is one of those things. That's this, even if you're not a sports person, this will be something that will be talked about and studied as a response, as part of the globe's response to this, you know, COVID-19 virus. When you think about your own role in the bubble and being there, what are the things that stand out to you as just something you won't forget?
Yeah, I mean, so many things. I always tell people, like, I feel like this is my only time in life that I was a part of a first and an only. You know, like in years to come, there is such this like finite amount of people that can tell you what the bubble was like. And to be, you know, one of the vehicles to like tell that story is something that I really cherish. And I'm super thankful that I had the opportunity to be there for multiple reasons because of that, but also because it was super important to have Black media in that bubble, especially with everything that was going on at that time, which is really everything that's been going on for all of time. But you need to have, you know, Black media in there to ask questions. And I think it's also good for the players to see Black media there because there's just like an instant familiarity that you get when you see somebody that looks like you just like inherently feel like they understand you.
Definitely.
And what you're saying. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, to me, that's a very big part of the connection that comes with questions, answers, and interviewing in general. So that sticks out to me, that I was able to be one of those voices and one of those people that could tell a story that I've lived my whole life, you know? So that sticks out to me. Obviously, when the Bucks decided not to play, that's the main thing that really comes to my mind. Just being out there like we're courtside, clock hits 0, nothing is happening. So everyone, rushes to the back. We're like, what's going on? We're sitting down for like 4 hours. Like literally we're all sitting outside of that locker room for 4 hours. The media staff asked if we wanted food, water, and we were just getting bits of information here and there. We were told the Bucks weren't going to talk, but obviously we still all stayed just in case something happened. Then we were told they were going to talk, so we stayed longer. Then, George Hill comes out, he gives a statement. Like that was one of the moments in my life that it felt as heavy as it actually was. Like you felt like you were in this really crazy, important moment. A lot of times you're in these moments, but it doesn't hit you till later. Yeah. But at that time I was like, we're stopping basketball and we're here for
racism.
Yeah, we doing it. Let's go, y'all. We leaving the bubble. I'm literally so into the cause. I'm like, yes. And then it was just crazy because it was this domino effect. We just saw so many things happen in so many sports and not just, with the NBA teams that were in the bubble. So I could go on and on about, the things that stuck out, but yeah, it was super interesting, little 2.5 months for me. And I got poked in the nose more times than I can even count. So I remember that too.
Because of the testing, yeah.
The testing. I was about to say, Taylor, what's someone was getting my boogers out. No. And it started off so shaky for me because my first test that I took in the bubble, I land, I get to the hotel, we quarantine for 7 days, but I land and take a test. It is a false positive. So they call me and tell me you have COVID. And I'm like, no, I don't.
I'm gonna need y'all to, you don't have COVID though.
I'm gonna need y'all to run that back because I got tested every day before I went, But so it started off crazy, got all those tests. Then obviously we're tested every day. So you felt super safe in the bubble. So I'm happy for the experience.
Well, you talked about something though, Taylor. You said that, it was important to have Black media there, not due to just that climate, but for all climate that's important. I understand this because I'm a woman covering the NBA, but what is it like being a Black woman in media, especially at the highest level? You're covering all of NBA, I'm covering the Hawks. There's not very many of us. What is it like being, one of the few? You said talking about the only and the few. What is it like being one of the few?
No, absolutely. I mean, and I know, it's there are so many great things about it, right? And I always try my best. I think it's important that when we do talk about, our Blackness or being women, that I try to lead with the amazing things about it, right? Because I feel like so many other people try to paint it as all negative. This experience is terrible. It's I don't want to be anything other than a Black woman. It is a thing I cherish the most in my life. I feel like I am defined by it. I think I draw a lot of my strength and positive qualities from being both of those things. So there's obviously, really great things about it, but you're also in rooms as the only person, and that doesn't always feel good. A lot of the times that feels very lonely, right? Nobody else here really understands or has had experiences that I have had. I think that Black women in media are incredibly over-sexualized. I think that is probably one of the biggest problems that is out there. Yeah. I think that so many times our worth is determined by things that are not our work, which is a big issue as well. But with all that being said, I feel like we have a major responsibility. Like I said, there has to be somebody there to ask the questions and somebody there that understands. I also believe there has to be a number of us that can get through this so that eventually people don't have to. I think all of those things play a big role as to why we're doing this and why we have to keep doing it, even when it's the days that are really sucky. It's important that we continue pushing through and telling stories and shining light on things that matter, but also have fun. It's very important sometimes.
I believe
that fun to me is an act of resistance in so many ways. Doing good work is an act of resistance in so many ways. Just your presence and existence, Renee, is an act of resistance. And I just try to kind of tell myself that every day, that all of this is for something, you know, adds up to something.
For me personally, like I actually haven't, like my hardest experiences that I've had is getting the opportunities. You know, like I think a lot of people think being a Black woman in media, I deal with like a lot of like people coming down on me or coming hard on me. It's not that. It's the fact that like with my basketball resume, had I been an NBA player, I'm pretty sure that I wouldn't have had to do as many cold calls or send out as many emails just to get that opportunity. So for me, I just think like, yes, when you're in the door, it's great. Like once you get the gig, they treat you a certain way. For me personally, they've treated me a certain way once I've gotten the gig. But for me, the big difference is getting that gig, getting those opportunities with my, you know, just getting in the door. So once you get there, it's like, I have fun with it because I know this is, you know, this is the highest level in sports. So yeah, it's just that getting your foot in the door, I think is where it's hard for a lot of women.
Yeah. And I think that speaks to a problem of the system, right? That the people that are making these hiring decisions, the people that, you know, have positions of authority tend to be white people, white men, and you almost like subconsciously are hiring those that you see yourself in. So if you're not going to see yourself in the Black woman, or maybe even a woman. So much of it starts like top down. There has to be people that are in those positions that if they are those categories, they understand the importance of diversity and why diversity actually makes your content and your place better. It's not just about hiring someone because they are Black or Asian or Hispanic or a woman. It's because when you add all of that, it actually improves your place of work. Like it's not just about checking off a box. Like there are numerous studies that show it is something that helps. So you need people in those positions that get that and understand that
take it there, Taylor.
To everyone. So it's important that we have to change the systems. That's how I tell people. It's the systems that are the issue. So, but I can go on and on about that. But it is absolutely the systems.
Speak to that because there, you know, I'm sure that all of us have been in situations where you've heard conversations or heard deliberations, and it always feels like, in a lot of instances, that there's just it's so easy to say, well, okay, but the best candidate, we're going to go with the best candidate. And that's always, that's very often not going to be the candidate who is diverse because, oh, well, this person has all of this experience and they've worked at all of these places and this person doesn't have that kind of resume. It often seems like you have to ask people to do a little extra work on their end in order to make that leap to really embrace diversity. How do you get people in charge to make that leap and to not just say, well, you know, if you actually look at the resume, this is the best candidate. It's not always the case.
Yeah. And I mean, it's so funny that whenever something like that happens, you're right. Everybody's like, well, there weren't enough qualified, you know, diverse candidates, blah, blah. I'm like, but y'all hire the same people over and over. Like even when you think about, you know, NBA coaches or like NFL coaches, they are hiring the same people that lost somewhere else. So are they even the best candidate? You know, like what are we doing here in terms of the best candidate? Like you aren't giving anybody the chance to prove that they maybe are better than the person that essentially failed at whatever place they were, and you're giving them another chance to maybe fail a little better, right? So I think it's like recognizing that you're falling into these patterns that are very intentional, right? Like there are things set up to create this very insulated top environment. You know, if you can't get a job unless you have the opportunity, but you also can't get the opportunity, what you are doing is perpetuating a system that only gives people who receive opportunities more opportunities. It's like how everybody had, you know, that debate about unpaid internships. It's like, first off, why would we advocate for anybody to not get paid? Like I'm never going to stand on the hill and be like, work and don't get paid. Like that is not a thing that I am going to champion. But it's crazy. Like I read Michelle Obama's book, which is so good. And one thing that she talks about in it, she's like, I'm very special, but I'm special in the way that every single person is special. I just had different choices and I had different opportunities. So everything is environment, and you take the choices that are given to you. So there has to be a way to give better choices and equal choices to all people, and not just the people that already are privileged or live in a place, where they can take whatever is given to them. So I think so much of it is really just creating good choices for all people.
Woo, she is the host of Take It There on Bleacher Report. Y'all got to go check it out, because if you hear her talking right now, she talks on her show as well. I'm just saying,
I talk too much. I talk too much.
No, Taylor, thank you so much for joining us here on Takeline.
Thank you. I had so much fun. This revived my day. So I appreciate you guys having me. Stay safe, stay happy, stay healthy, all the things.
Oh,
Bye,
thank
Taylor.
you. Thank you. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, Taylor.